Good evening, everyone. Time for episode 13 of The Drums of Doom. We're going to start halfway down page 152 in the chapter titled In the Spider's Web. We'll read a few paragraphs back. Remind you of where we left off. Okay, we left off with Apex, the Eye Tyrant, sailing down the hall to his room. And if anyone is, I'm not sure if anyone's listening to my recordings, but if you are enjoying them and listening till the end, please leave me a comment below the video. It will hearten me and motivate me to keep doing these recordings, because right now I'm not sure if anyone's actually listening. So please leave a comment if you like these narrations. All right. Good night, Apex, said Kristoff. Good night. Flying down the hall like some demonic balloon, he arrived at his door. Hello, it is Apex. If anyone lies within, I could use some help with the door. Sounds of light footsteps on tile drifted up from under the door, and then a tiny, dog-like creature opened it and greeted him. Welcome, Master Apex. I trust that we have provided well for you. Beyond him, a fiendish harem of floating females lounged above a giant lily-pad-filled pool fed by waterfalls. A table was well prepared with freshly butchered meat and other revolting delicacies. Amazing, Apex drooled, just like home. And if tears of joy could have come to a floating lord's eyes, then most surely they would have. Dim the lights, little dog, dim the lights. There is only room enough on this lily-pad for one bullfrog. Kristoff's room was everything that a king could have dreamed. Several decanters of liqueur were set upon a fine crystal table. When he moved to pour himself a glass, a beautiful maid appeared, as if from nowhere, and asked, "What's your pleasure, my lord?" "Whiskey," he said, "the strongest one that you have. I'll most likely be dead by morning." Before his cup had reached his lips, 3 more servants approached from a small antechamber. "We have prepared a bath for you," the lead servant said. "Forgive my foulness," he said, "but it has been a long road." "Nonsense, my lord," she replied. "We are here to serve. We have been commanded to treat you like a king." "Well, then," he replied, raising one eyebrow, "who am I to argue?" Emptying his glass, he surrendered to their whims. He was stripped and robed in moments. They then led him to the exotic bath. Their attentiveness made him feel awkward and vulnerable like never before. He was fully expecting that at any time they would loop a garrote around his neck. Try as he might, he could not shake the thought, because he had known too many operatives who would consider such assassinations to be the perfect death. Here, in this place, for the first time in his life, he was no longer in control of his destiny. When he finally gave up and accepted his demise, the experience was not altogether bad. Surprisingly, his death never came, and neither was his drink poisoned. Things here were very strange indeed. 7 o'clock, and he was dressed in his finery and ready in his room. Sitting at a finely prepared table, a new set of servants had arrived to wait upon him. The chef's menu was extensive, and he had taken the liberty of ordering the baked cod with cream sauce for himself and the fillet of mammoth for his guest. He had no way of knowing if his choices were right or wrong, and the servants were reluctant to guide him. "My lady," he said, rising as ARIANA entered, "you look lovely this evening." "Of course I do, you fool," she said. "At least I see that you know how to prepare a table." "Please do sit down," he said while pulling her chair out for her. "I do believe that I will. Ah, fillet of mammoth, I see. Perhaps you think that I am a pig with a gluttonous appetite." "Certainly not," Kristoff said, a bit flustered. "If it pleases you, you may have my cod, or we can place another order." "On the contrary, you silly man, you have somehow passed the first test. Fillet of mammoth is one of my favorites." His face went from confused and nervous to a bit more relaxed. This woman was complicated. "Tell me, Kristoff, how many men have you killed?" Well, he said, quite taken aback at such a question over dinner, I never kept track. You cannot lie to me. I assure you that Lothdea makes every deceit known to me. Very well, he said. I have killed 737 assorted souls. That is quite an accomplishment for such a young man. I see now why Vlad has chosen you. I am no mere murderer. Most of the men that I killed were bad enough to deserve it. A noble assassin, she said. I have never heard of one before. What game are you really playing, my lady? In time, Christoph. For now, let us just enjoy dinner. Ayla, play us some music. The servant proved to be a talented harpist, and her seductive melodies continued throughout their date. Where do you hail from? Well, my lady, you may call me ARIANA in private, if you insist. I do. Well then, I most certainly arrived here from Lycurgus. No, you silly little man. What I wish to know is where you were born. What place do you call home? I see. Well, ARIANA, I don't think that you would find that at all interesting. On the contrary, I think that I will find it very interesting. Well then, if you must know, I was the son of a harlot, born in a cheap brothel in the port city of Lycurgus. And your mother? What became of her? She was murdered by a drunken pirate named Thrace Gilgalhad, the Wooden Shoe. He is known as the Plague of the South Sea. Why do they call him the Wooden Shoe? He lost all the toes on his right foot in the jaws of a giant clam while diving for pearls. So you must wish him dead then. One day he will die by my hand, but he is a difficult man to catch. Last that I heard of him, he was hiding out on the island of Sicily. Was the death of your mother the reason that you became a hired killer? Not at all. The ladies of the brothel sheltered me from the truth of her death until I was 10, and by then I had learned to love them all as my mother. Why then would you choose such a profession? One day, when I was a young man, I watched as an innocent man was publicly tortured and hung by a corrupt governor. I realized then that I had found my calling. So you see your work as public service. Of course, Christoph said, which is why I always wish to know what causes I work for. Money is only the smallest motivation, and that is why these latest missions pain me so. The true purpose is hidden from me, and I wonder if the cause is a just one. Interesting, ARIANA said, because the Queen would also very much like to know the answer to that question. We'll have to wait and see. Her words spoke volumes. Now he knew that she was plotting to use him as a pawn. ARIANA just kept getting more beautiful. I am glad that we had this little chat. Now let us just enjoy the music and this excellent meal. Quite, my lady. ARIANA, of course, Christoph answered. And shall I tell you how I came to be friends with Apex, the floating lord? Oh, please do. Well, I had just finished a job in the slums of Drakmar when I came to be detained by the local constabulary. Apex, the poor soul, was being mercilessly tortured in a tiny cell within which he couldn't even hover. That's terrible! And how he suffered. You can then imagine how once I had incapacitated my captors, I just had to set him free. Your mercy knows no bounds. Oh, and that's not even the half of it. I am completely riveted. Please do continue. Their meals in the night were pleasant. Ayla's music and Christoph's story did indeed get even better. Secret chambers, secret plans. Dawn arrived far too soon, and Christoph awoke from bed with no memory of when he had actually retired. It was a mystery that he was quite uncertain about, even nervous, and these were feelings usually foreign to him. Sliding his feet over the edge of the bed, he sat up. He rubbed the sleep from his eyes and reached for his pants. How was your night, master? Apex asked. He nearly died from fright. How long have you been here? The beast floated above the foot of his bed, drooling. A few hours, Apex said with a toothy grin. I didn't want to wake you, so how was your night? Mysterious. Wonderful. Mine was quite mundane, Apex said with while his master dressed, but relaxing to be sure. There was no bashfulness between them, for after all, they shared no common anatomy. It made me rather homesick. The ladies in my room had no knowledge of tyrannia, as they were all born from eggs sold on the black market. Alas, their mother must have been killed in their collection. How horrible! Such atrocities are rare, but they are the makings of our nightmares. Let us hope that some day they may return home. It is a long journey, Apex said, one that I know I would never survive alone. I will help you if I can, whenever you wish to leave. My debt to you is not yet repaid, master. On the contrary, Kristoff said as he pulled on his boots. You are free from the moment we first met. I keep no slaves. That is why I remain. You are my friend, and one day soon you will truly need me. At that moment, there was a crisp knock on the door. Apex opened it with his telekinetic eye. Masters, the little dog goblin said, the necromancer says that it's time. Ready, Kristoff said, while buckling his sword belt and shouldering his rucksack. We were expecting you. Right this way, masters. Apex floated close behind the slave, bouncing in a blissful, bubbly fashion that Kristoff found both amusing and annoying simultaneously. Pacing a step or two behind them, 1,000 fears consumed his thoughts as he tried to piece together what he had learned. Lothdea. ARIANA knelt beneath the altar of her beloved goddess. She had lived most of her life beneath the watchful eyes of the Coven. They controlled everything, religion, politics, and other darker things. Nevertheless, the Coven and their leader, the Queen, were worried. Their conquest of the surface world had exposed their people to many new thoughts and dangerous ideals, and some dark Alfar were even rumored to worship other gods. Death or worse awaited such blasphemers, but the trend seemed to be spreading. Perhaps the sun, for eons lost to the dark Alfar, was now somehow poisoning the hearts of their people. There were other rumors even more troubling. Stories of secret societies and covert agendas. Lothdea believed that it was just such a plot that Vlad and his accomplices were perpetrating. It was ARIANA's goddess-given duty to uncover their secrets and expose them as traitors. She had already learned enough to condemn them, and yet she hesitated, her heart filled with turmoil. Living among them, she had come to respect them, and an unfamiliar feeling had entered her heart. She prayed, but spoke not a word. Parliament. Parliament had convened. Military leaders and civilian consuls had all gathered for their annual meeting to discuss the laws and enact new policies. They convened in the great meeting hall, the centermost room in the mightiest fortress in Dragonia called the Castle of Lords. Located on an expansive cliff-faced hilltop, it overlooked the great Lake Farid and protected Farid Hoth, the capital city. Farid Hoth was home to countless wonders, including Hoth, Lothdea's grand cathedral, and the Colosseum. The Castle of Lords housed a large garrison of troops and provided a safe meeting place for Dragonia's leaders. It also housed a small arena. Sometimes entertainers performed before the governors, and at other times they held high-profile trials of law. Occasionally, it was also a place of public execution. This meeting was special because the High Priestess of Lothdea, Queen Afra, was presiding. "My people," she said, "I thank you all for coming here this day. Your patriotism and loyalty do you great credit." Her voice was raspy with age, but powerful, and none in the crowd dared to give her less than their complete attention. "Long did we languish in under-earth, banished from our rightful lands by the Lyal Selfar. They said that our goddess is evil and theirs good, but how can anyone judge the beliefs of another? Without Lothdea, how could we have survived for 3,000 years without the sun? Of course, we could not, for without her light to warm and protect us from the beasts of the underworld, we would surely have perished. I then ask you, how could such a nurturing god be evil? At times, our survival required sacrifice and tough decisions. Sometimes that meant war, and in these wars, we were always alone, until now." Now Dragonia is a mighty empire, and where once we found enemies, now we stand together as allies. Nevertheless, we cannot rest, for there are still many forces that plot against us. There are rumors that there are those among us who have come to seek out their own private agendas, and some have even sought other gods. How is this possible? Is not the love of Lothdea enough to guide their spirits and fill their hearts? Is not Dragonia cause enough to fight for? I say that these perpetrators are greater enemies than our foes across the sea. Their treason seeks to undo the structure and beliefs of the empire. We will apprehend them and try them as criminals. There is no terrorism greater than that which comes from within. I ask you all to join me in this fight. We must come together and win this holy war. My people, fellow Dragonians, we have fought together, we have made peace together. Now our nation extends to 2 continents and beyond. Let us rise together once again and stretch our swords across the sea. Let us smite the ones that oppose us for the last time. All hail the Queen, one member of Parliament cried out. Ardor filled their hearts. All hail the Queen, they cheered, although there was one among them who did not mean it. One member of the audience, Anselm de Marchant, smiled a particular kind of smile. He saw the effect her speech had on his opponent, and he was happy indeed. With a few strategic actions of his own, he would witness the end of his bitter rival. His own campaign on the shattered continent was far from over, but island by island he was stretching the arms of Dragonia's military might with an iron fist. It had earned him the name, the Silent Sword, among his enemies. Nevertheless, he had not forgotten his grudge against the Academy's first chosen. There was then some commotion to the right of the central stage. Guards dragged 2 men out of the lower dungeons in chains. Bloodied by the bite of many lashes, they limped and hobbled in obvious agony. "Kneel before your queen," their guard ordered. "Never," one of them shouted, but a sudden swift blow across his shins brought him to his knees. "Ranvauen Jethroy," the queen said, "you and your accomplice have been charged with high treason. You have admitted to the worship of other gods." "All hail the rise of Corellius!" The guard struck him a hard blow across his face with cat-o'-nine-tails, shattering his right eye and cleaving his nose in 2. "Blasphemer!" she screeched. "From this day forward, no Dragonian will utter his name. The penalty is soul death." The Parliament was hushed, shocked into silence by the name of Lothea's most hated adversary since the dawn of time. He ruled the day and she the night. He banished them into Underearth for 3,000 years. "Kill him!" urged the southern consul. "Death, death, death!" chanted the assembly. "We will give them to Arachnidon," the queen commanded. "He shall decide their fate." Standing before them, she raised her hand and muttered a few words. A portal opened in the floor of the arena. In size, it was over 50 feet across, filled with dark, swirling mists and foul, bubbling vapors. Where the floor had been was now a portal to another realm, and what came forth filled every heart in that chamber with dread. The beast was huge, bloated and black. Its eyes alone were over 10 feet across, and only its head and forelegs could fit through the portal. Ranvauen's guard retreated in horror, his prisoners too badly beaten to go anywhere. "Arachnidon," the queen said, "you have heard the charges. You must decide the penalty." In an instant it held the 2 screaming traitors beneath its gigantic fangs, and then slid back from whence it came. The portal closed, and only silence in the arena floor remained where terror incarnate had just been. "God shall punish the unfaithful," shouted a true follower in the crowd. "God shall punish the unfaithful," shouted the assembly. "Remain true to your faith," the queen said, "and the goddess will reward us with victory upon victory until all of Tempest is one mighty Dragonia, and only then will our people be free." "All hail the queen!" "Now go forth, my children. Spread the word and faith in your country and your God, for only 2 continents remain unconquered. Very soon we shall renew our war upon them. For the might of Dragonia," her great general Yu Wen Quan said. For the might of Dragonia, the hall was on its feet, both dark elf and humans allies alike. Queen Afra had once again proven her conviction, and they were all warriors born. A world without battle and the sacrifices of war was unknown to them, and the queen and the goddess wanted to keep it that way. I'm going to do one more chapter. The Tower of Lycurgus. I need a special creature, Vlad said, one far more terrible than any that you have thus far conceived of. What must this creature be able to do? The time will soon arrive when we must begin our assault on Safe Haven. The west passage through the Knoll Hills is guarded by a mighty high-walled fortress at Harg Pass. I have seen it. These creatures must have the strength of an elephant, with size to match, and most importantly, they must be terrible to behold. They should inspire fear, be capable of carnage, and be quick-thinking in the midst of battle. What of the mammoths of the northern reaches? Your orcs have learned to tame them. They are prone to turn upon their masters when injured. No, I seek a new monster, completely reliable, without any motivation beyond the service to its masters. We need something new to lead our armies to victory. I will do as you command. Work swiftly, Lycurgus, and in secret. We haven't much time. I will contact you when I have created my models. Good luck, Lycurgus, and good day. Good day, Commander, he said, but Vlad had already disappeared. Very disconcerting, that. Now where do I begin? Looking out of his tower window, he spied a small spider on the window ledge. It was black and fuzzy, compact and ready to spring. Yes, yes, my friend, you might be just the thing that I need. Reaching for his glass, he emptied it. His laughter echoed from his high tower and out across the barren forest around him. And that's where we'll end episode 13. On page 164, we'll begin episode 14 with a chapter entitled Ariana and the Queen on page 165. Once again, thank you for listening. And as always, read the Duaredheim Staff Saga by me. Have a great night.